On March 27, 2020, a group of hikers started their adventure on the vast Pacific Crest Trail, where the mountains of California, Oregon, and Washington showcase incredible beauty. But what started as an adventure full of joy and happiness turned quickly into a nightmare. Trevor Lair was the son of Douglas, also known as Doug Lair, and his wife Karen Schneider Lair. He was born on February 12, 1998 in Cleveland, Ohio. Along with his parents and sister Olivia, he grew up in Grafton. Although he enjoyed sports as a child, Trevor soon discovered that he did not have the required skills and speed to compete as an athlete. Therefore, he decided to focus on academic subjects, in which he excelled immensely. Because of the recession in 2010, he and his family moved to Texas at the age of 12. This meant a new career opportunity for his parents. But for Trevor, this was a tough time. He threw himself completely into his school and playing video games, so he could put the difficult life behind him. In 2015, a friend of Trevor's invited him on a hike to Yosemite National Park. For the first time, he was introduced to hiking. In 3 days, they hiked more than 50 miles. He fell in love with hiking and immediately realized it would play an important role in his life, as he could start climbing mountain peaks and experiencing the beauty of nature. Before, it felt to him like the world was black and white, but suddenly this changed completely. While hiking, he enjoyed the beautiful nature, solitude, and physical challenges. Shortly after his trip to Yosemite, he immediately made plans for his first night hike through the Smoky Mountains. Because his friend was sick, his father Doug decided to hike with him. But actually, they were unprepared and made classic beginner mistakes, such as bringing too much food and too heavy a backpack. Moreover, his father was not in the right condition to go with them, but he went anyway to spend time with his son. "Dad, I'm getting you to the top of this mountain. You lead the way. We'll go at your pace. Stop as frequently as you need to. We'll get through this together," Trevor said. It took them nearly 5 hours to cover an altitude difference of more than 3,000 feet over a distance of 5 miles to their first shelter. He offered his father several times to return to the starting point of the trail. They suffered scrapes, exhaustion, pain, and his father lost 2 toenails. Still, they decided not to turn around. After all, they had not driven 12 hours to complete this hike for nothing. "It was an adventure of a lifetime that I will cherish forever," said his father. While in college, Trevor became a member of the trekking club of Ohio State. Trevor loved to hike. In less than 6 hours round trip, he hiked the Presidential Traverse Route in the White Mountains of New Hampshire and the South Kaibab Trail in the Grand Canyon. Every semester, he returned to the Smoky Mountains. With his father, he hiked the Eagle Rock Loop in the Ouachita National Forest and the Outer Mountain Loop in Big Bend National Park. This had caused his physical condition to increase. In December 2019, he graduated from The Ohio State University with a degree in computer science. Even before he started a new job at Microsoft as a software engineer in July 2020, he wanted to complete the Pacific Crest Trail. He had his sights set on hiking 2,650 miles through impressive landscapes. At first, his father Doug didn't like the idea, but eventually decided to become his trail manager. For months, Doug studied Pacific Crest Trail data. According to his mother Karen, Doug did more research than Trevor had ever done. It became Doug's passion. He was obsessed about this, and rightly so, she said. On weekends, his father and Trevor compared all ideas to bring the most efficient and lightest equipment. Meanwhile, Trevor prepared to keep up his fitness and endurance. For example, on one hike he went into the water on purpose because he knew that during the Pacific Crest Trail there would be sections that would be soaking wet. In addition, there was a good chance he would have to cover these sections tired and exhausted. Because he was actually offered the new job and would start around mid-July, he knew he wouldn't make Canada. Even if he started hiking earlier, he would have about 100 days on the trail. So he set a new goal: get a license as soon as possible for the start date of the Pacific Crest Trail and reach Crater Lake on July 1, so he could move to Seattle with his girlfriend Elise Harmon after that. A few weeks before Trevor was going on an adventure, his girlfriend told him she was afraid of losing him. Trevor replied, "I don't want to die, and I don't really think I'm going to. If I do, I'm not the only one here on this earth for you, and I'll still be there with you." Knowing the weather in March would be riskier, they decided to make a plan in advance. If there was a lot of snow in the Sierra, they would stop at Kennedy Meadows and travel straight to the southern terminus of the 800-mile Arizona Trail. On Monday, March 9, 2020, Trevor, his sister Olivia, and their father spent a week staying with their grandparents Dave and Marilyn in Phoenix, Arizona. His grandparents would bring them to Campo a week later. Until that moment, a global concern grew around the coronavirus. The stock market had collapsed, and fears about the virus were spreading. His father suggested he suspend his hike, but the desire was so strong that Trevor wanted to continue. After all, he was already close to the starting point. He took an unexpectedly long farewell and said, "I love you, Dad. Thanks for all you've done to make this adventure a reality for me." To which his father replied, "Go hike the shit out of that trail." On Monday, March 16th, the time had finally come. Trevor was taken to the starting point by his grandparents, Dave and Marilyn. They took a few final pictures before Trevor started the adventure of his life. I said something like, "You can always back out," Marilyn said. He just smiled. Within a day, he made his way to Lake Morena. Lake Morena is a reservoir near Campo, California in San Diego County. It is a popular stop for hikers along the trail. This lake provides a beautiful and peaceful landscape for hikers to rest, camp, and enjoy outdoor activities before continuing their hike along the Pacific Crest Trail. At this point, he came into contact with new hiking companions. He met Leo Bohlmann, a 22-year-old hiker from Milwaukee, Cody McMahon, a cheerful 26-year-old social worker and hiker from Australia, and Jannek Löffler, a 23-year-old small but experienced snow hiker from Germany. Cody remembered that the sun came out, the wind almost completely dropped, and a perfect blue sky was visible. There was a very light snow on everything, maybe a quarter of an inch. It was quite a beautiful morning, but that also, I think, lulled us into a false sense of security. They started their adventure at the trail's southern terminus in Campo, California near the Mexican border and hiked north. The Pacific Crest Trail stretches 2,650 miles from the border between Mexico and the United States to the border with Canada. Many people choose to hike the trail south from Campo, California on the border with Mexico. This is considered the traditional start of the PCT and offers a gradual build-up to the challenges of the trail. It also allows hikers to follow the seasonal landscape and traverse the Sierra Nevada mountains when snowmelt is more favorable. The group also started their adventure at the trail's southern terminus in Campo, California, near the Mexican border. They hiked northward. Trevor easily climbed uphill. Then they followed the trail to the charming town of Idlewild, located in California's San Jacinto Mountains. Idlewild is a popular stop for hikers on the Pacific Crest Trail because of its nearby trailhead, amenities, and beautiful natural surroundings. Unfortunately, they never arrived in this town. On Sunday, March 22nd, early in the evening, Trevor and his companions arrived at the 101.2-mile marker at the Beryl Springs Trailhead in Ranchita. Nearby was the Montezuma Valley Market. The co-owner, Mike Pavlak, often brought hikers with the large wagon to his small store. After consuming food and drink, the hikers pitched their tents in a park where they spent the night. The weather for the next few days did not look good. A cold snowstorm was predicted. Trevor and his new friends wanted to get ahead of the storm, so they continued their adventure at 4 a.m. Local pensioners offered the hikers coffee and some goodies and brought them back to the starting point of the Pacific Crest Trail. His father had sent him a text message asking if he was doing well. He told me other than a few pesky blisters, he was feeling great and that his body was strong. Leo, on the other hand, had hurt his knee and decided to rest for a few days at the next starting point in Warner Springs. Because of the bad weather forecast, he asked the rest of the group to stay as well, but Trevor and his companions declined this invitation. Leo got a ride to the hotel. Once there, he watched the news and heard about the seriousness of COVID-19. He decided to end his trip and return home before the airspace was closed. A few days later, Leo had contacted Doug. He told them they were soaked from the heavy wet snow. The group felt miserable, but continued anyway. "We were just going to keep going till someone tries to stop us," said Trevor. In the meantime, the weather had gotten worse. On Wednesday, March 25th, the group moved on through the blizzard and arrived at Mount Laguna. There they fortunately found shelter. Initially, they planned to stay here for 2 days because a heavy snowstorm was predicted for Thursday. But since they also wanted flexibility in their schedule, they booked a tiny house for one night. The next morning, they wanted to book an extra night, but unfortunately, it turned out to be already fully booked. There was no choice but to continue their way through the snow. On Thursday, March 26th, they arrived at the Paradise Valley Cafe on the Palms to Pines Scenic Byway in the Mountain Center. This was a popular stop for hikers. After this, they wanted to hike to Apache Peak. Apache Peak is a mountain along the Pacific Crest Trail in the San Jacinto Mountains. This is a prominent landmark and also a draw for hikers on the PCT trail. The area around Apache Peak is known for its challenging terrain, with deep snow and icy conditions, especially in winter and early spring. By now, the group had covered quite a few miles. 8 days in a row, they had hiked about 20 miles per day. After reaching their camping spot at PCT mile 166.5, they decided to rest and sleep. Trevor was in contact with his father this evening. According to Doug, his son sounded exhausted on the phone, but Trevor told him he couldn't wait to cover the last 14 miles to Idlewild. The next morning, Friday, March 27th, they picked up extra equipment in town, including an ice axe and micro spikes in preparation for Mount San Jacinto and Fuller Ridge. But suddenly, things went terribly wrong along the way. The group turned the corner at Apache Peak at mile 169.5 of the PCT route, but suddenly, the trail disappeared under their feet due to snow. They looked at a map to see if another route was possible. Jannek walked about 10 steps ahead and made it across to a group of trees. But when Trevor tried to cross, he suddenly slipped on a slippery patch of ice covered by a layer of snow. I tried to get to him. There was really no way that he could slow himself down. It was a funnel down a rocky chute, and once he started sliding, I started yelling. Jannek turned around, and we just watched him go down the chute, tumbling off the rocks, said Cody. Trevor had fallen very deep. In the echoing silence, they shouted his name. Cody and Jannek were also afraid of falling, so they tied themselves to the nearest tree branch. Cody called 911, and anxiously they waited for help. Around 9:38 a.m. local time, authorities received an emergency report from Cody and Jannek's GPS device. Meanwhile, a friend of Doug's called him to tell him that a tragic accident had occurred on the PCT near Trevor's last location at 166.5 kilometers. According to the news report, a hiker had passed away from his injuries before the rescue team arrived on the scene. The rescue team was near Mountain Center. Trevor was nearby on Thursday, but really should have hiked past here by now. He tried calling him, but didn't get an answer. At about 10:30 a.m., rescue teams from the Riverside Mountain Rescue Unit and the California Highway Patrol Medic and Air Operations Unit reached the location. With 5 fire engines, 2 helicopters, and a team of more than 24 experienced rescuers, they bravely faced the extreme weather conditions. While one helicopter concentrated on rescuing Cody and Jannek, the other helicopter searched for Trevor. Unfortunately, dangerous terrain and bad weather complicated the search for Trevor, and the helicopter failed to locate him. After a long search, they saw a figure, but could not yet tell if it was Trevor. The California Highway Patrol helicopter team dropped paramedic Charles Rhodes off at a gap. There he discovered it was Trevor. Trevor had suffered multiple injuries to his head and torso when he bounced off the mountain and fell onto a rock. Unfortunately, he did not survive this accident. Around 1:30 p.m., Trevor was pronounced deceased. Trevor's body was lifted from the gap. Meanwhile, they were working to rescue Cody and Jannek. Because of the strong winds that were picking up, they could not yet get the boys up with the Star 9 helicopter. After 3 attempts, the mission was aborted. According to several sources, Cody and Jannek were hanging shivering from the cold tied to a tree. Cody was in contact with emergency services and heard that a hiker had passed away in the San Jacinto area. Still, they hoped it wasn't Trevor. At that point, a group of rescue workers gathered at the base of the mountain, about an hour and a half walk away. When the wind dropped down briefly, a sheriff's helicopter managed to drop off Cameron Dickinson, a member of the rescue team, at a location just 200 yards away from Jannek and Cody. The intention was still to lift them. By now it was late afternoon and the temperature had dropped. The soft snow had now turned back into ice. Cameron tried to lead Jannek and Cody to safety. Cameron attached crampons to Cody's shoes and guided him to a safe spot on the trail. Then he returned to help Jannek and tried the same thing. Cameron managed to get Jannek and Cody to safety. The two were cold and traumatized. They covered a distance of 5.5 miles while Cameron distracted them with talks to help them process the horrors they had experienced. Only when they were questioned by sheriffs did they know for sure that Trevor had passed away. Meanwhile, Doug was still trying to contact his son. He normally contacted his parents every night around the same time via phone, text, or Graham in reach, but this time his father got no response. "I was blowing up his phone with texts," Doug said. Concerned, he called the Riverside County Sheriff's Office. As a precaution, he had to show a photo of Trevor. "I figured they were just doing all this stuff so they can rule it out. Tell me, it's not your son, don't worry," Doug said. Doug had the most difficult conversation of his life with the sheriff and coroner, who finally told him the tragic news. "I'm 90% sure this is your son. We have Trevor." His world completely collapsed. He called his wife Karen and his daughter Olivia to tell them the tragic news. As you can imagine, Friday, March 27, 2020 was the darkest, most painful, heartbreaking moment of our lives. The grief of losing our son has hit us like a tsunami. The unstoppable waves drown us in grief each time they hit. "There's nothing that can be done to stop them," said Doug. According to his friends and family, Trevor was handsome, responsible, smart, and everything you want to see in a son. He firmly believed that one day he would develop a groundbreaking computer program that would change the world. In addition, Trevor cared very much about other people. While our time together was brief, it was intense. We had several deep conversations on the trail, and my viewpoint on the world has in many ways changed because of Trevor, said Leo. We're not individual souls, but a collection of the souls of the people we love the most. We are one in the universe, Trevor said to his friend Elise before beginning his adventure. What started as an exciting adventure full of joy and dreams soon turned into a terrible nightmare. The untimely passing of Trevor Lair reminds us of the risks that every adventure carries. Trevor's memory will live on forever in the hearts of those who knew him. Thanks for watching this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on your notification bell to stay updated on more similar videos. We would love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your comments below. Until next time.